The Jamaican sun beat down, hot and heavy on my skin, as Ronin and I walked hand in hand along the beach. White sand, turquoise water, postcards don't do it justice. It was the honeymoon we'd always dreamt of. We'd splurged on a secluded villa a little outside of Montego Bay. Just us, the sound of the ocean, and a whole lot of newlywed bliss. Happy? Ronin asked, his eyes, the color of warm honey, crinkling at the corners. Beyond happy. This is perfect. He squeezed my hand, a familiar comfort. We'd been together for 7 years, high school sweethearts who'd weathered college, first jobs, and all the usual anxieties of growing up. Marriage felt like the next logical step, a solidifying of something already strong. That evening, after a day of swimming, snorkeling, and far too many rum punches, we decided to take a walk along the beach as the sun began to fade. The air was thick with the scent of salt and jasmine. "I love you, Tamara," Ronin said softly, stopping to pull me close. "I love you too, Ronin Maxwell." We kissed, the taste of salt and sugar lingering on our lips. That's when it happened. Suddenly, a rough hand clamped over my mouth, cutting off my scream. Another pair of arms wrapped around me, pinning my arms to my sides. I thrashed, panic erupting in my chest. Ronin yelled, trying to fight them off, but he was quickly overpowered. Everything after that was a blur of darkness and fear. A burlap sack was shoved over my head, the rough material scraping against my skin. I could hear Ronin's muffled struggles beside me. We were dragged, kicking and screaming across the sand, then lifted and carried somewhere. The next thing I knew, I was being thrown onto a hard, cold surface. The sack was ripped from my head, and I blinked against the harsh fluorescent light. The room was clinical. White walls, a bare concrete floor, and a single metal door. There was nothing else. No windows, no furniture, no indication of where we were. Ronin was beside me, his face bruised and cut, his eyes wide with terror. "Tamara, are you okay?" I think so." My voice trembled. The adrenaline was starting to wear off, replaced by a bone-deep chill. We were trapped. A disembodied voice crackled from a hidden speaker. "Welcome, Tamara and Ronin. Your honeymoon is about to take a very unexpected turn. You will remain in this room. There are rules which you will learn in time. Your cooperation is advised." Then silence. Ronin tried the door. Locked. He pounded on it, yelling for help, but no one answered. We were alone. Utterly alone. The initial shock gave way to a desperate scramble for information. We searched the room, inch by inch, hoping to find a clue, a weapon, anything. But there was nothing. We were completely at the mercy of whoever had brought us here. "Who would do this?" I whispered, my voice hoarse. "Why?" Ronin shook his head, his face etched with worry. "I don't know, Tamara. I just don't know." Days bled into each other, marked only by the arrival of food. Bland, tasteless protein bars, and water. We had no idea what time it was, how long we'd been there. The fluorescent light never dimmed, a constant, relentless glare that frayed our nerves. The voice returned sporadically, issuing instructions, seemingly at random. Rule number 1, do not damage the room. Rule number 2, do not speak of the outside world. Rule number 3, personal items will be returned to you in due course. These rules felt deliberately vague, designed to provoke confusion and fear. The absence of our phones, wallets, even our wedding rings was a constant reminder of our vulnerability. We were stripped of everything that defined us, reduced to our rawest selves. The silence was the worst part. The oppressive, suffocating silence, punctuated only by the hum of the fluorescent light and the sound of our own breathing. It amplified our fears, our doubts, our growing paranoia. Ronin, usually so optimistic and resourceful, was starting to crack. He paced the room constantly, running his hands through his hair, muttering to himself, "We have to get out of here, Tamara. We can't stay here. We'll go insane." I tried to be strong, to reassure him, but I was terrified too. The uncertainty, the lack of control, was eating away at me. One day, the voice announced, "A test is forthcoming. Your performance will determine your reward." A test? What kind of test? The anticipation was almost unbearable. We clung to each other, trying to find strength in each other's presence. When the test arrived, it was far more insidious than we could have imagined. The door hissed open, revealing a small metal tray. On the tray sat 2 syringes. One of you must inject the other with a sedative. The one who is injected will sleep for 12 hours. The reward for the injector: a photograph of their choosing from their personal collection. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about confinement. It was about control, about manipulating us, turning us against each other. Ronin stared at the syringes, his face pale. "They want us to hurt each other, Tamara. They want us to break. We can't do it, Ronin. We won't." But the allure of the photograph, a tangible piece of our former life, was a powerful temptation. We argued for hours, our voices rising in desperation. "Think about it, Tamara," Ronin pleaded. 12 hours of peace, no fear, no anxiety, just sleep. "And what about you, Ronin? What about me having to inject you? How could I do that?" The tension in the room was palpable, thick and suffocating. We were both exhausted, hungry, and terrified. The isolation was amplifying our insecurities, magnifying our flaws. Finally, I broke. I couldn't stand the pressure anymore. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, I'll do it." Ronin looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief and guilt. He didn't want me to do it, but he wanted the escape even more. I picked up one of the syringes, my hand trembling. Ronin sat down on the floor, closed his eyes, and held out his arm. "I love you, Tamara," he said softly. "I love you too, Ronin." My voice cracked. I plunged the needle into his arm, pressing the plunger slowly, deliberately. As the sedative took effect, Ronin's body relaxed, his breathing deepened. He was asleep. I was alone. The door opened again, and another tray was slid inside. On it was a single photograph. It was a picture of us taken on our wedding day. We were smiling, radiant with happiness, completely oblivious to the nightmare that awaited us. Tears streamed down my face as I clutched the photograph to my chest. The victory felt hollow, tainted by guilt and despair. We were playing their game, and we were losing. The next few days were a blur of regret and recrimination. Ronin was distant, withdrawn. He barely spoke to me, his eyes filled with a silent accusation. The sedative had given him a temporary escape, but it had also created a rift between us, a wound that might never heal. Then, the voice returned. Another test. This time, the choice is more difficult. The second test was even more cruel than the first. One of you must inflict a physical wound upon the other. The reward, an additional blanket. A blanket. After days of shivering in the cold, the promise of warmth was almost irresistible. But the price was too high. "They're trying to break us, Tamara," Ronin said, his voice trembling with rage. "They want us to destroy each other." We refused. We argued, we pleaded, we begged, but the voice remained implacable. The pressure mounted, the silence grew more oppressive, the cold more unbearable. Slowly, imperceptibly, the cracks in our relationship widened. We started to blame each other, to resent each other. The love that had once bound us together was now strained, twisted by fear and desperation. One night, I woke up to find Ronin staring at me, his eyes filled with a strange, unsettling intensity. "I can't take it anymore, Tamara," he whispered. "I need the warmth, just a small cut. That's all it would take." I recoiled, horrified. Ronin? No! You can't be serious. I am serious, Tamara. I'm freezing. We're both freezing. Just a little cut. Please. He reached for me, his fingers brushing against my arm. I flinched away, my heart pounding in my chest. Don't touch me, I hissed. Don't you dare touch me! We stared at each other, our faces contorted with anger and fear. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in on us. Suddenly, Ronin lunged at me. I screamed and scrambled away, knocking over the water ration. It spilled across the floor, a precious resource wasted. He grabbed my arm, his grip tight and painful. I struggled, kicking and screaming, but he was stronger than me. Please, Ronin, don't do this! Please! He ignored my pleas, his face set in a grim mask. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal shard, a piece of the protein bar packaging he had been hoarding. He raised the shard to my arm, his hand trembling. I closed my eyes, bracing myself for the pain. But it never came. Instead, I heard a sickening thud, followed by a groan. I opened my eyes to see Ronin collapsing to the floor, clutching his head. Standing behind him was me. Or at least, someone who looked exactly like me. The woman's face was blank, expressionless. She held a metal bar in her hand, the same kind used to reinforce the protein bars. She dropped the bar and turned to me, her eyes cold and empty. He was going to hurt you, she said, her voice monotone. I couldn't let him do that. Then she disappeared. I stared at Ronin's unconscious body, then at the spot where the woman had been standing. My mind was reeling, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. Was I hallucinating? Had the isolation finally driven me insane? Or was there something else going on? Something far more sinister than I could have ever imagined. Ronin was out cold. I frantically checked his pulse. Weak, but there. He was going to be okay, I think. The other me, the doppelganger, I had no idea what to make of it. Was it a figment of my imagination, a manifestation of my own fractured psyche? Or was it something real, something tangible? I dragged Ronin to a corner of the room, away from the spilled water, and tried to make him as comfortable as possible. Then, I sat down and tried to think. If the woman was real, who was she? Where did she come from? And why did she look exactly like me? The only logical explanation, however illogical it seemed, was that she was part of whatever twisted experiment we were trapped in. Maybe they had cloned me, or used some kind of advanced technology to create a perfect replica. But why? What was the purpose of all of this? The rules, the tests, the doppelganger. It all felt random, chaotic. But deep down, I knew there had to be a purpose, a master plan. I decided to keep the incident a secret from Ronin, at least for now. He was already on the edge, and I didn't want to push him over the brink. When he finally woke up, he was confused and disoriented. He remembered arguing with me, but he couldn't recall anything after that. What happened? He asked, his voice groggy. You just fainted, I said, trying to sound casual. You were dehydrated. I gave you some water. He looked at me suspiciously, but he didn't press the issue. The next few days were tense and uneasy. We avoided each other, the unspoken secret hanging between us like a heavy shroud. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the other me was still out there, lurking in the shadows. I started to see her everywhere, in the corners of my eyes, in the reflections on the walls. I was losing my mind. Then, the voice returned. The final test is at hand. Your choices will determine your fate. The door opened, revealing a new tray. On it were 2 items, a key and a loaded handgun. The key unlocks the door, the voice announced. The handgun contains 1 bullet. One of you may leave. The other must remain. The silence that followed was deafening. This was it, the ultimate test, the culmination of everything we had endured. They were forcing us to choose between our love and our freedom. Ronin stared at the key and the gun, his face etched with disbelief. "They can't be serious," he whispered. "They wouldn't do this." But we both knew they were serious. They had been pushing us to the edge from the beginning, and now they were giving us the final push. We argued for hours, our voices rising in desperation. "I can't do it, Tamara," Ronin said, tears streaming down his face. "I can't choose between you and my freedom." "I don't want you to, Ronin," I said, my voice trembling. "I don't want either of us to make that choice." But we knew we had to. If we didn't, they would find another way to break us, to force us to make a decision. Finally, I made up my mind. "I'll do it," I said, my voice firm despite the fear that gnawed at me. "I'll stay. You take the key and go." Ronin looked at me, his eyes filled with horror. "No, Tamara, I can't let you do that." "You don't have a choice, Ronin," I said. "I'm making the decision for both of us." I picked up the gun and held it out to him. "Take it, Ronin," I said. "Go. Live your life. Don't let what happened here destroy you." He hesitated for a moment, then reached for the gun. His fingers brushed against mine, and I felt a jolt of electricity pass through me. "I love you, Tamara," he whispered. "I love you too, Ronin." He took the gun and the key and walked towards the door. He paused for a moment, his hand on the handle, then turned back to me. "I'll never forget you, Tamara," he said. "I promise." Then he opened the door and stepped out. I was alone. The door slammed shut behind him, and I heard the sound of the locks clicking into place. I sat down on the floor, the gun clutched in my hand, and waited for the end. The silence was broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. I held the gun, its cold metal a stark contrast to the sweat on my palms. Ronin was gone. Free. And I was left to rot in this sterile prison. Suddenly, the voice boomed through the speaker, laced with a chilling amusement. "Congratulations, Tamara. You have passed the final test. Your selflessness is remarkable." Passed the test? What did that even mean? Was this some kind of sick game show? Then the door hissed open. But this time, it wasn't to deliver food or another cruel choice. It was to reveal the truth. Standing in the doorway was a woman in a white lab coat, her expression detached and clinical. Behind her, I could see a long corridor lined with identical rooms, each illuminated by the same harsh fluorescent light. "Please, come with me," the woman said, her voice devoid of emotion. I hesitated, then slowly stood up, the gun still clutched in my hand. I followed her out of the room, my senses on high alert. As we walked down the corridor, I peered into the other rooms. To my horror, I saw more couples, each trapped in their own white cell, each facing their own unique set of challenges. Some were arguing, some were crying, some were simply staring blankly ahead, their eyes hollow and empty. The woman led me to a large observation room overlooking the entire complex. There, seated at a console, was a man I recognized instantly. Dr. Alistair Reed, a renowned psychologist, famous for his controversial theories on human behavior under extreme duress. Theories I had studied in college. "Welcome, Tamara," Dr. Reed said, a smug smile on his face. "I trust you found your stay enlightening?" "What is this?" I demanded, my voice shaking with rage. "What have you done to us?" "This, my dear Tamara, is an experiment. A study of the human psyche under conditions of extreme isolation and stress. You and Ronin were carefully selected for your unique compatibility." "You kidnapped us," I shouted. "You tortured us. You turned us against each other." "Nonsense," Dr. Reed said, waving his hand dismissively. "You volunteered. You both signed waivers. Read the fine print on that honeymoon package. It was all perfectly legal." I couldn't believe it. We had been tricked, manipulated into becoming lab rats in his twisted experiment. "But why?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. What was the point of all this? "To understand the limits of human endurance," Dr. Reed said, his eyes gleaming with scientific curiosity. "To see how far people will go when pushed to the breaking point. And you, Tamara, you have proven to be a particularly fascinating subject." He gestured towards a monitor displaying a replay of the moment Ronin had left the room. "Your selflessness, your willingness to sacrifice yourself for the sake of your partner, it's truly remarkable. But tell me, Tamara, do you really believe Ronin will live a happy life, knowing what you did for him?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Dr. Reed chuckled. "That's what I thought. You see, the true test wasn't about choosing between your love and your freedom. It was about the consequences of those choices. The guilt, the regret, the knowledge that you have irrevocably altered the course of your lives." He paused, his eyes narrowing. "And now, the final phase of the experiment begins." He turned to the woman in the lab coat and nodded. She approached me, holding a syringe. "What's this?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Anesthetic," she said, her voice flat. "It will erase your memories of the past few weeks. You will be returned to your villa, and you will resume your honeymoon as if nothing ever happened." "No!" I screamed. "You can't do that to me. I need to remember. I need to tell people what you've done." But it was too late. The woman grabbed my arm and plunged the needle into my skin. As the drug took effect, my vision blurred. My thoughts became muddled. I felt my memories slipping away, fading into the darkness. The last thing I saw was Dr. Reed's smug smile, and the last thing I heard was his chilling voice. "Welcome back to paradise, Tamara. Enjoy the rest of your honeymoon." I woke up in our villa, the Jamaican sun streaming through the windows. Ronin was beside me, sleeping soundly. I felt odd, disoriented, like I was emerging from a long, strange dream. "Ronin?" I whispered, shaking him gently. He stirred and opened his eyes. "Hey, sleepyhead, what time is it?" "I don't know," I said. "I feel weird, like something's not right." He sat up and looked at me, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean? Are you sick?" "No, I don't think so. It's just, I have this feeling that we've forgotten something. Something important." He chuckled. "Maybe you just had too much rum punch last night." He reached for me, pulling me close. "Don't worry, Tamara. Everything's fine. We're on our honeymoon. We're in paradise." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to forget whatever strange feeling was haunting me. But I couldn't. The feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing moment. It was like a glitch in the matrix, a dissonance in the fabric of reality. As the days passed, I tried to dismiss the feeling, to convince myself that it was just my imagination, but it wouldn't go away. Then, one day, I found something that shattered the illusion. We were unpacking our suitcases to prepare for our return home. I reached into my handbag to retrieve my wallet and found something else inside. A small, folded piece of paper. I opened it up and read the words scrawled in hurried handwriting. "They are watching. Don't trust anyone. The key is..." The message ended abruptly, unfinished. But it was enough. I knew then that my instincts were right. Something terrible had happened. We had been through something unspeakable. And they were still watching us, still controlling us. I looked at Ronin, who was humming happily as he folded his shirts. He seemed completely oblivious to the danger we were in. But I knew I couldn't tell him. Not yet. They were watching. I crumpled the note in my fist and pretended to find my wallet. As I continued to unpack, I noticed something else. A small scar on my arm, hidden beneath my sleeve. A scar I didn't remember getting. I touched it gently, and a jolt of memory flooded my mind. The other me. The metal bar. Ronin collapsing to the floor. It was all coming back to me, piece by piece. The white room, the tests, the choices, the betrayal. And then, a horrifying realization. The final test. The one with the key and the gun. Ronin had left, but he hadn't taken the key. I had the key. I looked at Ronin again, my heart pounding in my chest. He smiled at me, his eyes filled with love and trust. But I knew the truth. He wasn't free. He was still trapped. And so was I. The real prison wasn't the white room. It was the amnesia. It was the false sense of normalcy. It was the illusion of freedom. The key wasn't meant to unlock the door to the outside world. It was meant to unlock something else. Something far more dangerous. It was the key to unlocking the other me. And she was about to be unleashed. As Tamara stared at Ronin, the reality of what Dr. Reed had orchestrated slammed into her. It wasn't just about pushing them to the brink. It was about weaponizing their deepest selves. The other me wasn't a clone. It was a surgically split personality, a programmed assassin triggered into action by the memories starting to resurface. The key wasn't for escaping the room, but for consciously accessing that programmed state. Tamara looked down at her hand, clenching it tight. A wave of icy calm washed over her as the other, the programmed self, took control. The loving gaze she had just given Ronin vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. "I know what I have to do," she whispered, her voice no longer her own. She began to walk towards Ronin, who, oblivious to the impending doom, smiled back at her. "It's time to complete the experiment." Suddenly, Dr. Reed's disembodied voice filled the room from a hidden speaker. "Excellent, Tamara. The sleeper agent has been activated. The target must be eliminated. Do not fail us." The sun shone brightly, reflecting off the silver knife handle that emerged from under Tamara's shirt. Paradise was about to turn into a bloodbath, orchestrated by a twisted mind and executed by a completely shattered soul.